Hey, Shawn, Cindy Lukehart, Keller Williams Realty. Glad you're able to be on this little interview scenario here. Crazy times we're in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invite. Crazy times is probably the best way to describe it, I think.
I think we were talking earlier. We've both been in kind of our line of work, me in real estate and you in practicing law since about 2001, and we've seen kind of a lot of different things. You want to tell us a little bit about your end of the law real quick, and then I'll kind of give them a little bit on my real estate, and then we'll get into some questions.
Sure. Yeah. So I've actually been practicing now since 1998. So as we record this, what is that? 22 years, I think, if my math is right. In 2001 is when I got into foreclosure work specifically, and I worked for a plaintiff foreclosure firm, what we would call today a foreclosure mill. And so I took houses away from 2001 until about 2004, when I left that law firm because it was shutting down, and I decided to open my own practice helping people in foreclosure. And so I've been now representing homeowners in foreclosure cases since about 2004. I do occasionally for real estate investors that invest in notes and mortgages or use seller financing or something. I do for real estate investors that hold notes and mortgages. I still do some plaintiff foreclosures, but I think the bulk of my practice is representing defendants in foreclosures, representing people that are trying to save their homes.
Cool. I know I did a lot of short sales back in the day, and my lesson from doing short sales is let the short sale negotiators that are now in business be able to handle the short sale end of things, so that if they can't manage the short sale, at least they know who to refer to, so that they can perhaps get the foreclosure stopped if you can get it stopped for them.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work with stopping foreclosures in connection with short sales. Still am. There aren't as many as there used to be, but I still have a handful floating around the office.
Yep. So on that note, we have no idea what's coming down the pike. You can listen to a lot of different people say it's one way, another group of people say it's another. So we're just going to have to sit tight and see how our businesses roll one client at a time as to whether they need you or they need me or they need the both of us. Who really knows?
Yeah.
So, when I am working with clients, student loans come up in their debt to income ratio a lot. So how is this whole student loan thing playing out today?
So there's a whole bunch of things going on with student loans. First of all, we've got the COVID bug, the virus going around right now, coronavirus going around right now. We've got the CARES Act, and what most people are focusing on within the CARES Act is all the business stuff, the small business stuff, the EIDL loans and the PPP loans and all that kind of stuff. But CARES actually has in it some student loan relief as well. However, it applies, and I'm looking here at my notes, it applies only to federal student loans held by the U.S. Department of Education. So the CARES Act doesn't apply to private student loans, doesn't apply to certain other types of loans unless possibly those loans were transferred over as direct loans to the Department of Education. Then they may fall under the CARES Act. But if you have a federal loan and it's held by the U.S. Department of Education under the CARES Act, they have to suspend payments, so you don't have to make payments. They have to suspend interest. So while your payments are being suspended, interest isn't accruing. And they have to suspend collection. And that's even if you're behind. They have to suspend collection. And I think that runs out, or that ends September, the end of September, October 1, September, the end of September, 30, 31. I can't remember off the top of my head how many days September has in it. I was never good at that. So if you're someone that has a federal student loan that's held by the Department of Education, you can get some relief under the CARES Act, and you may not have to make payments. Now, what I'm encouraging some of my clients to do, if they can make payments, is to do so, even if the payments have been suspended under the CARES Act. And that's because while interest is currently zero, every dollar you pay to your student loan pays down the principal unless you're behind. So if you're someone who's current and you have a federal student loan that is under the CARES Act, you have a suspension of payments, interests, and collection, I'm still advising people, if they can afford to pay, because that pays down the student loan dollar for dollar. If they can't afford to pay, then obviously take advantage of what's in the CARES Act for the student loan relief. You know, save up that money, use it for your mortgage or some other kinds of expenses. If you do not have a loan that qualifies, a student loan that qualifies under the CARES Act, we still have the income-driven repayment plans that are available on student loans. And so you would submit an application, and based on your level of income, you would get a payment consistent with that income. Now, it does stretch the repayment term over 20 to 25 years from when you modify your student loan. But at the end of that 20 to 25 years, whatever balance is remaining on the loan is forgiven. And if you qualify for a $5 a month payment, $50 a month payment, $0 a month payment, if you qualify for something that low, you can get it, and it still counts. So if you have a $0 payment because your income is low or gone, every month that goes by, you pay zero. That still counts as you being current on your student loan under the income-driven repayment plan. One thing that I would do, though, is you have to recertify your income every year so that the Department of Education and the student loan servicers can keep track of, has your income gone up or down? Does your payment need to go up or down? But you can recalculate those payments right now based on COVID. So if you've had a decrease in your income, then you can request a recalculation of your income-driven repayment plan. And if you get approved based on COVID, that resets when we have to certify until another year from now. So you gain a little bit of extra time on a lower payment if your ability to pay your student loan has been affected by COVID. So that's another thing, another little trick that I don't know people are looking at. The other thing that's happened in student loans, there's been a lot of bankruptcy litigation out there that typically student loans are not dischargeable in bankruptcy, but I know that there are some cases out there that are challenging that, and a lot of them are challenging it successfully. It used to be where if, like, for example, the classic example is if someone got a medical degree from a Caribbean med school that's since been unaccredited and shut down. Well, that hardship could provide that makes their student loan debt dischargeable in a bankruptcy because they didn't get an educational benefit, basically, is the argument. There's another argument that says if you have undue hardship, and it's the Bruner test is what a lot of bankruptcy attorneys will know it as. If you've had an undue hardship, you can discharge your student loans into bankruptcy. Now, over the years, that case started to set the bar higher and higher. And as other courts interpreted that case, they started setting the bar higher and higher. For example, here in Tampa, our Tampa judges, if you're going to claim Bruner as a student loan hardship, the judges want to see that you cut other expenses, like you've cut cable, like you've cut out if you smoke or drink, like you've cut out, you don't go out to dinner as much, you eat at home all the time. They want to see that you've tried to reduce your expenses other ways and you're still experiencing this hardship. There was a case recently, I think last year, 2019, that came out of New York that said, nah, all these expansions on the Bruner test have expanded it way too much. We're going to go back to the strict language of the Bruner decision, and those are going to be the three criteria. And so if you can show that you had a permanent decrease in your income, if you can show that you've made an effort to pay back your student loans, if you can show that you're unable to pay back your student loans, that qualifies as enough of a hardship that you can get your discharge. And it started to roll back those other expansions that other courts have done. Now, that case is currently on appeal, and so I don't know ultimately what the courts up the chain are going to hold. But that was a major blow to student loan servicers and a major win for debtors' attorneys that may make it easier in the future to discharge student loans in bankruptcy. So that's typically the way that I would analyze it. In other words, is this a federal loan that's impacted by CARES? If not, can we get you on an income-driven repayment plan? If not, is there an opportunity to fix this maybe in bankruptcy court? That's the way that I would analyze if someone came to me with a student loan question.
Cool. Of course, we always try to keep them out of bankruptcy if we can avoid it at all costs, because the implications for loans, and sometimes it depends on what lender you're going to. It takes a while to get a loan from a lender in the future. So bankruptcy definitely does hurt in that aspect. But even if you found a lender that did lend after you've had a bankruptcy, you're going to pay a higher interest rate. So there's that little educational spin to that.
Well,
So
and let me clear up something. Let me clear up something real quick. Is that I do file bankruptcies, and I am a bankruptcy attorney, but I recognize that bankruptcy isn't the square peg that fits every round hole. So
right.
if bankruptcy is not the best option, I'm going to tell my client that. If bankruptcy is the best option, I'm going to tell my client that. In my mind, bankruptcy is just one of the tools I have in the toolbox to help people that can't pay creditors, but it's not the only tool.
And I can remember bringing a client in, and we were joking about how we serve people to our detriment sometimes, because we talked about them doing things that was not to their best interest in the long run.
Exactly.
So on the forbearance side of things, can you kind of give the pros, the cons, and the down and dirty forbearance? Because that led to a lot of a foreclosure spin last time.
Yeah, and again, forbearances, I think, are one of those things that are both a blessing and a curse, a double-edged sword. And so what a lot of people misunderstand about a forbearance is that it doesn't waive payments. It doesn't automatically restructure payments. All a forbearance is the bank saying, we, the bank, are going to forbear. We're going to temporarily stop whatever it is while you're doing X. So, a lot of times people will fall behind in a foreclosure or in a mortgage situation, and the bank will offer them you make your payments for the next 6 months and we'll give you a 6-month forbearance. And they say, great. And so they make their regular payments for the next 6 months. And then they get to that end of the 6 months and they say, great. So the forbearance is over. The bank says, yeah, you still owe the deficit. You still owe what you owed before you went on this forbearance plan. The forbearance doesn't modify the loan. The forbearance doesn't catch up your payments. The forbearance only means that you're going to pay this amount of money until, for whatever period of time, and we're not going to take any collection action while you're doing that. Now, with COVID, forbearance has been shifted a little bit. Right now, what the banks are saying is you don't have to make your payment for up to 12 months. But what they're doing is they're doing it 3 months at a time. And so they'll give you a 3-month forbearance. And then when the 3 months is over, in month 4, you owe 4 months. So one thing you can do is call right when month 3 starts and say, hey, look, I don't see that I'm going to be able to make the payments next month. Can I have another 3 months on my forbearance? And the bank should say yes, because it's up to 12 months. And then you call the beginning of month 5 and you say, still in this scenario, still trying to recover because of COVID, can I get another 3 months? And they should say yes and give you 9 months. And then at the beginning of month 8, you call again and they should give you the 12 months. Now, so that's the good news, is that you don't have to make your mortgage payments. And so what else could you be using that money for? You could be using that money to pay down your student loans. You could be using that money to buy groceries. You could be using that money to do all kinds of other things. You could be saving that money so that when it does come time to catch up your mortgage, you've got not necessarily every single payment saved away, but you've got a huge chunk of it saved away. Because what I would do is then pair a forbearance with either a repayment plan or a modification, so that at the end of that 3 months, 6 month, whatever period of time, you call the bank back and you say, okay, I know my payments were $2,000 a month. And so I've been on a forbearance now for 6 months. So I know it's $12,000 to catch up. I've saved 8. Can I pay you 8 and spread the $4,000 deficit over the next 12 months? So my payments over the next 12 months will be $2,000 plus 1/12 of $4,000. That's a repayment plan. Or can I modify? Can I take the entire $12,000 balance and put it at the end of the loan? And now I've got, $8,000 saved up that I can do something with. And so that's a modification. Can I tack it on? Or maybe you can do both. Can I pay you $8,000 down or $6,000 down? and take the balance and put that at the end of the loan and modify it that way. I don't have a lot of information yet on COVID modifications. I'm analogizing them to Irma. So when Hurricane Irma came through Florida and everybody needed assistance, the banks were pretty good. I'll give some of them credit. They were pretty good about creating plans that would allow people to modify relatively quickly. I myself got an Irma modification. Since we're still in month 1 of COVID, I don't know what the modifications are going to look like when the banks start to roll them out. Where the analogy with the Irma modifications breaks down is Irma was limited to Florida and some of the coastal states, where COVID is countrywide, worldwide. So, I don't quite know exactly how quickly the banks will be able to get on the ball to offer modification plans, but they should. And so that's how I would attack this, is if you need the breathing room, call your bank, ask for the forbearance, knowing that that money is still going to be owed at some point in the future. As the forbearance comes to an end, start calling them a month out in advance. As the forbearance starts coming to an end, start talking about modification options, repayment plan options, additional forbearance options. When all of that fails, if all of that fails, then that's where you contact one of the two of us.
And in that, some people get overwhelmed with the bank's paperwork that comes with that, i.e. the short sale correlation. It's just an inundation of bank papers, and most consumers don't understand the loan papers they signed when they signed up in the first place, and then the forbearance ones get equally as complicated. So they can call you at what phone number to kind of walk through, can you help them with that process?
Yeah, the easiest way to get a hold of me is the internet. Is the website is yesnerlaw.com, which is YESNER law.com. There is a phone number on the website. That phone number is the tracking number that my web developer put on the website. So I don't know that number off the top of my head, but the office number is 813-774-5737. Either of those telephone numbers, the 813-774-5737, or whatever that number is on the front page of the website, both of those will ring through to the office, or the website has options to contact us by email electronically.
Cool. And speaking of your website, hold up your book.
Oh, yeah. You're assuming I can find it. Here it is. Got it.
He's got this book right here, and it's on Amazon, either Kindle version or paper version, and I could probably get it signed if you really want one signed.
Yeah, we can get you some signed ones, and I discounted the price. So the Kindle version is 99 cents, and the paperback version is, I want to say, $9.95.
I think that's what I saw this morning. Yeah.
Normally, when these first came out, the paperback versions were about $20, and there was no Kindle version. So I did that because I know, the book is all about different strategies to eliminate debt, and I know people are struggling with that right now. So I didn't want them to have to worry about, how am I going to afford to buy this book? So that's why I dropped the paperback price, and when I released Kindle, it was 99 cents. It will go up. It will go back up to some, quote, normal price level. But for now, while we're dealing with the pandemic, I'm keeping the price low.
Cool. And then your podcast, if you had to listen to just one of your past podcasts or one of your recent ones, which one would you listen to?
Wow. So the podcast is the same name as the book. In fact, it was the podcast that inspired the book. And I'll sort of lean back here. I don't know if you can see it. I've got logoed polo shirts that also advertise the podcast and the law firm on the sleeve.
Well, I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to show them your website if I can find it, because I had it here at one point.
Okay. But in terms of the podcast, gosh, to pick one, I released episode 214 yesterday as we record this. So and I have 2 bonus episodes in there. So you're asking me to choose between 216 episodes worth of content. Like, which kid is my favorite kid?
So do you have a recent one? I noticed you did one with another attorney. It was all about the COVID scenario. Is that one worth listening to?
Well, I think probably the one that I am most proud of, if I had to pick it, I did an episode, and I believe it was a bonus episode. I did an episode where I interviewed like 8 to 10 different people. I interviewed business owners, I interviewed financial advisors, I interviewed other attorneys, I interviewed an economist, and it was right as COVID was breaking. It was right as the NBA had shut down, the NHL had shut down. There were no stay-at-home orders in place yet. It wasn't really as widespread as it is now. And I did an episode that ended up being, I think, my longest episode. It was over an hour. And I strung all these interviews together because what I thought people were not talking about was the impact on the economy, sort of foreshadowing what we're going through now. People weren't thinking of, well, when you shut down Amalie Arena here in Tampa, where the NHL Lightning play, and the NCAA was going to play the first round of its tournament at Amalie Arena. When you shut that kind of stuff down, what does that do to the employees that work in the arena? What does that do to the restaurants that surround the arena? What does that do to the hotels that surround the arena? Now, we hadn't shut down restaurants or hotels or any of that stuff yet. And I don't even know that I anticipated that would ever come at the time this interview was recorded, but I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was one of my best episodes to get the input of all these knowledgeable people about what it is or are going to be the various impacts of the virus on our macro and micro economies. And
I think that's episode 210. I looked it up on my phone, and I think it's episode 210. You had Even Levingood, you had Jonah Faulkner, Chris Thomas, Chris Callender, those kind of people.
Chris Kremitzos, who does a lot of events locally. Ian Levingood's an attorney. Jonah Faulkner was an insurance agent. I know I had Forrest.
A guy on here that was on CrossFit, how it's affecting people that like to exercise on a regular basis.
Yeah, the Ryan McElhaney, who has CrossFit ABF here in Pinellas County. Rich Fika, who owns Gorilla Bench Training and Gorilla Bench Events down here in Pinellas. They both share the same space for their well, they're in the same building. They have different spaces, but they're in the same building for their gyms. They're both struggling. I mean, I know Rich is also an insurance agent, and so the insurance agency side of his income is still doing okay, but the training side, the exercise side, is basically trickled to almost nothing. He's still doing. Him and Ryan are both doing some online stuff. They're doing some classes. Some where they go out on Facebook Lives and Instagram stories and whatnot and give people advice on what to do. And so I know they're still here. My
massage therapist has converted to teaching stretching classes so that we can stretch through what we can't get massage, because of course we can't go there either. So right. I know a lot of people have gone online. We have converted to doing buyer consultations online, listing presentations online, being able to keep people out of homes if that's what the sellers are looking for. So it's become definitely a different environment of being able to stay in business.
Yeah, and I know one of the things we
used to think we want to work from home. Now that we're forced to, do we really like it?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting, because what I've said to my staff and to other people, and I'll say it to you too, my business has dropped slightly, and I think part of that is because people are afraid of, I've got a limited amount of money, I need to buy groceries, or do I want to pay this attorney to file a bankruptcy? But I think that's going to break here soon, as the forbearances turn into foreclosures, turn into other things. I've had a little bit of a spike in clients that have called me that have said, I've got my stimulus money now, and I have this debt collector who's chasing me. Can we settle it out? And so I've had a little bit of spike in that kind of stuff. But I've been telling people that when this virus is over, when we're allowed to go back with minimal or no restrictions, I may still choose to work from home one day a week, because this pandemic has proved to me that I can. And not only can I work at home, but I'm now, my two kids are in the other room. My wife is working from home as well. When schools reopen, when the economy reopens, when people go back to work, it'll be even easier to work from home because I'll be the only one here and it'll be quiet. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in real estate, we have a hard time working from the office per se because there's so many distractions within the office with so many personalities in there, and it's a matter of first thing they need to do, of course, is talk to the lender. So that's not a conversation I sit and have in the office. I refer them to my lenders so that they can get the most important part done is find the money first, because then we can
Right.
get the house. So thank you very much for your time, Shawn. I will be posting this on Facebook. I'll be posting it on YouTube channel. I'll share it to you so you can put it on yours as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Tell everybody I said hi that we both know. Have a great one.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye-bye.